but if we need to chat with you, hi, thanks for joining us. My name is Stephanie Rim, a reporter for the Long Beach Post. Today, we're going to be talking about the city's budget that was recently passed. And speaking with me today is Councilman Al Austin, who represents the 8th District, which includes Bixby-Nos and parts of North Long Beach, and who also chairs the Budget Oversight Committee. Councilman Al Austin, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to kind of start with a little brief update on what happened Tuesday night. The City Council approved a $2.6 billion budget while also trying to close a $30 million funding gap, with sacrifices made, job cuts, furloughs, a whole range of issues, right? And then, this was obviously caused in part by the coronavirus pandemic and the economic downturn as a result of that. But at the same time, the council also had to take into consideration what's been happening this summer, which a lot of protests, a lot of Black Lives Matter protests, and just protests asking for more equality and more justice for Black and Brown communities, especially here in Long Beach. We know that there's a lot of historical racism, institutional racism that's led to what we see now today. We've reported on that a lot, even within the health pandemic. We know it disproportionately affects Black and Brown communities as well. So just, against this whole backdrop of what's been happening this summer, and starting with March too with the pandemic, I wanted to first ask you what kind of concerns and messages you've been hearing from constituents regarding the budget and what they've been asking, and what stood out to you and what were some of the most popular comments?
Well, I mean, I've been on the budget committee for several years now. This was the first budget in many years that we have actually had a structural deficit, which we had to deal with. And, generally we don't get as many comments when the budget is flush and everything is funded and quality of life is not going to be interrupted in any way. But obviously with the $30 million shortfall this year, we had to make some tough decisions. And so, typically when the budget time comes, we hear from, our friends of the library. Those advocates are very strong. They have a strong organized advocacy base. Our health department. This year, obviously, there was a lot of emphasis and attention on LBPD. We heard a lot from individuals who wanted to see us reimagine and re-envision how we provide public safety services. And there's a fact. Our public safety resources, if you combine police and fire together, make up nearly 70% of our budget. So it is it's something that we definitely need to pay attention to, not only this year, but moving forward. And so I think this budget actually attempted to recognize that, and we made some adjustments.
So you would say that definitely you heard a lot more regarding the police budget and just community services. Were there any other things that stood out to you regarding your constituents?
Well, I think we heard from folks who were um, didn't want to see the cuts, and that's a natural reaction to anything in most of the areas, right? So the city manager proposed a budget, his budget. The mayor made his recommendations, and we were off. We then had budget hearings, a number of budget hearings. We had our community budget hearings. There was I think a lot of constructive and passionate um, advocacy for various programs and elements of the budget throughout the process.
And then that segues into my next question of just, as a budget oversight committee, how did the committee process all of these different recommendations coming in at the same time from, the mayor, the city manager, and the constituents during this time?
Well, I think we took it all in. The budget process is obviously a document that we need to have to run the operations of the city for the next fiscal year. But it's also one that really outlines the values of our city, right? It is a political document as well, and so it's a process where we have to be thoughtful. We have to have an attentive ear to the community, and we have to take into account the very diverse needs of this very diverse city all the time. And so it wasn't easy, kind of ferreting through the priorities of council members, community. But I think at the end of the day, we were able to get out with a 9-0 vote, and I think a very productive process.
Before my next question, I wanted to remind audiences that they can submit their questions to us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube that we're streaming it. And we'll be answering, or I'll be presenting those questions at the second half of this live chat as well. So feel free to make those questions. So I wanted to focus on a specific aspect of the committee's recommendations. I know there is support with the mayor's recommendations, but within that too, the committee I know that the police department, just like every other department, was asked by the city manager's office to find cuts, just like every department doing that. And the police department did propose some cuts to certain police positions, including detectives and officers with the K-9 unit. But the budget committee proposed to reinstate some of those, and for some residents, they felt like that they weren't being heard when that was done. So if you can kind of explain the reasoning behind that so we can understand that better.
Well, like I said, the process is the process. You say some residents, but there were a lot of residents that will say that we didn't go far enough in terms of restoring police services. The fact of the matter is that, we still have we have challenges, we have crime, and people want to feel safe in their communities, in their homes. And this, to be able to revolutionize policing and expect that to happen in a budget cycle, I think is a reach and really not tenable. These are conversations that will and these are conversations and policies that will be reviewed and looked at for I would say many months and years to come. I'm one who is not resistant to change, and I'm wide open to new ideas about how we can keep our communities safe, how we can keep our communities healthy, and make everybody feel valued and dignified in our communities. But today, we still have some major challenges, and throughout this 2020 cycles, we've seen just over the last several months, shootings happening, violent crime increasing. We still have challenges in our city that we need to meet. And so we restored a K-9 unit. We restored, I think, 2 positions, 2 detectives for our violent sexual predator unit. These are important tools for our police department to be able to keep our community safe.
Is there, I know the way that you were able to reinstate that was by reducing the amount of overtime for the police department in that sense. Was there any other possible actions that were considered before ultimately going to this? Again, just taking into consideration, yes, there's communities that want to feel safe, but we are also hearing from residents that some of them don't feel safe with police. It's specifically when they're, treating mental illnesses and these types of situations. So, was there any other things that were possibly being considered that ultimately?
Of course, we are looking at going toward a, I would say the cahoots type model where we are going to be hiring more clinical social workers. That's actually in this budget, in our health department, potentially RNs to go out and assist with those type of calls. I just want to. I think there's a fallacy that that every person with a mental illness is not is going to be a harmless individual, and that's not true. We do homeless outreach as it is as a city. We have homeless outreach workers who go out and walk along our railroad tracks. They go along embankments and under freeways. And most of the time, those outreach workers will tell you that they feel unsafe going into those environments without a law enforcement officer present. And so we're going to have to be very thoughtful about how we move forward with those type of approaches. Of course, it is not just a police response. It's not just a fire department response. It's going to have to require a full court press and multi-interdepartmental approach to deal with particularly those issues related to mental illness and substance abuse in our community.
I want to know, what were your concerns going into this? Were there any, departments or any cuts that you were worried about that you were hoping to find a solution towards recovering?
Well, obviously, the budget that we were dealing with and the budget that we've had and the operations of the city I've been involved in for many years. And so I didn't want to see anything cut. I think I was most concerned about our employees and the impacts that this budget would have on them, their ability to obviously continue to feed their families and be productive employees. But at the same time, they did make a sacrifice, furloughs, and I think most public sector employees throughout the state employees, most city, county employees are dealing with this. Long Beach is not unique with these challenges with our budget right now. And so we've asked our employees to take sacrifices. And I think that was the toughest decision for me. But at the same time, that said, I think I was emphatic that the city council step up and take those same sacrifices as well.
So how do you see the city coping with this loss of services and increased fees brought on by the budget as well?
Well, I mean, it's what has to happen. Unfortunately, we have to balance. We have to continue to be able to provide the services that the residents of our city expect. They're going to be reduced in some degree. There will be impacts. But the core services will be delivered and delivered timely. And we're going to have to allow our city management and our city team to have some flexibility in terms of delivering these services over the next year. And that said, we also have to think about next year and the year after that. The forecast is not good. There are many challenges facing us, financial challenges that will face us. And so many of the decisions we made in this FY21 budget were done so with a lens of, FY22 and FY23 as well in mind.
And I know a lot of the mayor's recommendations were were implemented as well. And I think the Budget Oversight Committee also added to that. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of those type of community services that were added? As I think the African American Cultural Center was one of them too. Can you speak about that?
So, of course, the African American Cultural Center was added in the Measure B allocation, which was passed by the voters to support arts programming and a number of other amazing arts and cultural organizations in the city. That was done in the mayor's recommendation, but actually in the Budget Oversight Committee recommendation with the support of the mayor. The mayor's recommendations also creates a justice fund, restores the funding, and actually the right to counsel for a rental and tenants in our city, since housing issues are so important today, and a number of other issues that were actually outlined in the people's budget. And so I think the mayor's recommendation was very thoughtful. It pushed us, but it was a push we needed, and I think we ended up landing in a place that balanced, like I said, the unique needs and values of our city. Is what it is. I wish we could have been able to do more in a lot of areas, but we were able to actually do that. And I think we obviously this budget does something that we've never done before, right? We had a framework for reconciliation process. Hundreds of residents took a part in that. We listened. It was, again, city staff listening. City council obviously was listening throughout the process as well. And we came away with some options and opportunities to make some repairs and address some of our equity challenges and issues to improve our city's outlook as it relates to racial oppression throughout the city of Long Beach. We have a long way to go. This is a start, but I will just say this is a start that I don't know many other cities are actually engaged in right now. And so I think the residents of Long Beach should be feeling really proud of the work that we have done to get to where we are today. But yes, there's still a lot of work to do.
And then with the framework for reconciliation, I believe that was 3.2 million allocated to that, correct?
Correct.
You spoke recently about the people's budget as well, and I know something unique within this council budget was that they were given the opportunity by your colleague, Councilwoman Pierce, to kind of present, and I know it was a unique type of presentation. I'm wondering what was your reaction to it? Why you didn't second her motion to receive and file? Just what was behind that?
Well, I'll just tell you, the Budget Oversight Committee the week before, actually, I asked staff during the process to review the people's budget, and we put it on the agenda and to do an analysis in terms of how the proposed budget which was at the time the mayor's proposed budget and the city manager's proposed budget, how does it address the concerns raised in that budget? And I think they did a pretty good job of outlining specific line items and programs that actually did that. And then the following week, it was agendized to be before the budget hearing by Councilmember Pierce in Zendejas, right? And so when that issue came up, to be quite honest with you, I'm focused on the budget itself and getting that process taken care of. I listened to the presentation, and I had heard most of the presentation and the points raised in that presentation, I think several times at this point. And so when it came up for a motion and second, I assumed that the second would be from the person that seconded or signed on to the agenda, the agendizers of the item. And so it just went where it went. I don't know that it made any difference. It was no policy impact one way or another. It happened. We listened, and I think our budget is our budget. We've actually took into consideration many of the points raised in the people's budget this year.
I want to kind of shift to some of the questions that we're getting now. This one coming in. What do you think about the zero-based budget model that the city says it will explore?
We will definitely explore it. I know the mayor's made commitments. Excuse me. The mayor's made some commitments, as well as some of the council members have spoken in support of it. I, for one, am very, I'm a little skeptical about the approach. I think we definitely need to look at our budgeting approach, but zero-based is a Herculean model, an effort to undergo. It's not something that I don't think can be accomplished in one budget cycle. And if we do so, I think it might be best to look at a departmental or a incremental approach. But a budget the size of the city of Long Beach is a very, very important. It's a very difficult document, and it's more than just numbers on the paper or a pie chart. I mean, obviously there are careers, there are lives, there are operational impacts associated with the decisions related to budgeting.
Definitely. And then another question is, are city departments being allocated more money than they actually need?
I would hope not. I don't think so. But what I did say as the new budget chair, part of what I'd like to get accomplished over the next year with the Budget Oversight Committee is a review of our comprehensive annual financial report, public review of that. Budgeting is one thing, but actually how it's spent and understanding those dollars and how we're actually spending those dollars is another. And I think we need to have a deeper dive into that. I think the most recent CAFR that we would have available to us is the FY 19 budget. So, it usually takes a cycle or two to catch up. But we have that information. I'd like to do a review with that with our financial management staff, because it would be an educational process for not only the Budget Oversight Committee, the council, but the community as well.
Got it. Those seem to be the only questions we have so far regarding budget. If anyone has anything else, but I just wanted to know more of, just kind of speak to, oh wait, we have another one coming in. In the next budget cycle, will you look at lowering parking fines?
We'll look at it. We can look at it, definitely. Obviously we have to look at where we are at every juncture. I think we've been very relaxed, particularly with the COVID considerations when it comes to parking fines related to street sweeping and things of that nature. We've been flexible, and I think we'll continue to be flexible and as much as possible. But be careful, pay attention to those signs, and try to park and try not to get those fines.
Right. I mean,
that's my best advice.
I know it's definitely a easier said than done when, a lot of, especially in the poorer communities, and there's more renters, and it's harder to find those types of parking situations. So I think, taking that into consideration.
Definitely.
I guess, what are the biggest 3 takeaways from the budget this year, would you say?
3 biggest takeaways from the budget. Wow. Today, I think one of the biggest takeaways, I think that we've had a robust community process, more people engaged and more eyes on the process than usual. And that was, I think, a big takeaway. The opportunity to go deeper, to work closely with our city management as budget chair, our staff, and to really understand the guts of our operations as a city, I think was a real interesting takeaway for me. And then I think the last point was just, the collegiality and understanding of my colleagues, working to pass this budget. They all had priorities. They all were kind of all over the place to begin with. Ongoing communication and collaboration really was helpful in terms of landing this in a good place. And I think we were able to do that.
Those are all the questions on my end. Any final thoughts you wanted to say to the audience?
Well, again, I just want to thank the residents of Long Beach for their understanding, for their patience, and understand that we're working very, very diligently on their behalf to continue to deliver services that they expect, and we'll continue to do that. We're going to the city of Long Beach is going to look different moving forward. The way we deliver services may look a little different moving forward, but it's going to do so in a manner that again reflects the very diverse values and needs of our great community.
Got it. Well, again, thank you, Councilman Al Austin, for joining me today and talking about the budget. I know it was not an easy task to do, and I don't envy you in that, but I appreciate you coming on to speak with me about that.
Well, thank you for your time as well, and allowing me to interview with the Long Beach Post. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. And to the audience, thank you for the questions you submitted and for tuning in. And just stay tuned for next week with our live chat series. Thank you.